Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful Sunday. We are so excited to do the Dung Disaster Part 2. So, in case you were absent yesterday, we did a story called the Dung Disaster. We did Part 1, and today we're going to do Part 2. And before I begin, I'd like to greet all of you. Hello, everyone. Um, I don't know your name, so in case you'd like to put down your names, you can do that so I can greet you quickly and begin. Hi, Arya. Welcome. All right. So, the Dung Disaster was basically a humorous story. It's a very funny story. I'm sure you agree. And it's about a story of this child called the Cow Dung Kid, right? So, his name is Greg, Tanishka. Hello, Avyan. So, Greg is called the Cow Dung Kid because he brings manure for his father. Now, Greg's father is an olericulturist. He is a vegetable farmer and he needs manure. He needs animal excrement, animal poop as fertilizer. And since Greg keeps bringing this fertilizer, he's called the Cow Dung Kid. Hello, welcome. Now, his father, like I said, is a passionate olericulturist, and he also creates different manure batches for his vegetable garden. And one of the batches he creates is called batch 72. Now, batch 72 is a very scary batch. It's made with cow dung. Its main ingredient is cow dung and rotting pumpkins. And batch 72 is particularly malodorous. It's very stinky, it's foul smelling, it's putrid, and it is also kind of dangerous in a way because it kills all the flies. It also kills fish. It turns Greg's father bald when he touches it. And it smells so bad, it's so stinky that all the neighbors get very angry. They can't move around. The smell makes them feel suffocated. So it's a terrible batch. Now, everyone in the town basically hates Greg and his father because of batch 72. They want Greg and his father to leave the town. So Greg's father promises Greg that he's going to create batch 100, which doesn't have any smell. So he kind of changes the ingredients. He changes this concoction. He adds perfume and flowers and soap and all of these things, and batch 100 smells like nothing. However, something is about to go very, very wrong because batch 100 is even more terrible than batch 72. Let's find out what happens next. All right. So again, quickly, Pradnya, Avyan, hello, Arvika, Vanya, Samrita, yes, Kanishka. Let's continue. So we are on the dung disaster part 2. People couldn't smell batch 100, but the flies could. Flies can smell better than people can. So now people couldn't smell this new batch, which is batch 100, but the flies could smell it because flies have better olfactory senses than people. So let's look at this word olfactory. Olfactory is the sense of smell. So they have better olfactory senses than people do. So olfactory mean your olfactory senses refer to your sense of smell. All right? Okay, let's continue. It's something like a dog whistle. Dogs can hear them and people can't. So if you purchase a dog whistle, you may not be able to hear it, but dogs have a better sense of hearing. So they can hear this dog whistle. So similarly, even though people couldn't smell batch 100, the flies could smell it. The flies were attracted to batch 100. They came in thousands, in millions. The air was thick with flies. So you remember this picture I showed you, this cloud of flies? So there were even more flies this time. This time there were innumerable flies. There were multitudinous flies, right? Let's take a look. So flies were attracted to batch 100. So this wasn't normal. There were thousands of them, and then eventually millions of them. There were innumerable flies, multitudinous flies, thanks to batch 100. You can pronounce the second word as multitudinous or multitudinous. Both are correct. So innumerable and multitudinous mean many. So there were many, numerous flies, too many to count. And it all looked very scary. They were so thick that you couldn't see the sun. They blocked the sun. Do you see that? They've created a dark cloud and they're blocking the sun eventually. After a while, it started to grow dark. So these flies, they covered the sky. And it was only lunchtime. Even in the afternoon, they covered the sky and you couldn't see anything at all. Dad and I were in the backyard. After a while, we couldn't even see the house or the back fence. So in the beginning, there weren't so many flies. They noticed them coming while they were in the yard. But after some time, they couldn't even see the house. The flies covered the house. They covered the fence. It was it was absolutely crazy. They couldn't believe their eyes. I had never seen anything like it before. Eventually, there were so many flies in the air that I couldn't find Dad in the yard. So at some point, Dad goes further away in the yard, and Greg can't even see his father in the yard. There were so many flies. There were innumerable, multitudinous flies over there. So let's see what happens. There were so many flies in the air that I couldn't find Dad. Greg, he shouted, go back to the house, quickly! This is dangerous! So what's happening here is not normal. It's dangerous, right? These flies are covering the house, covering the sky, covering the air in such a way that they can't even see each other. Here, this was the beginning. Eventually, they're covering the air. So this is dangerous. This is hazardous, right? Dangerous. Another word is hazardous. He said, go back, go inside the house. This is not normal. This is dangerous. I couldn't see where he was. I couldn't see where anything was. So how is Greg going to find his way back to the house if he can't see anything? I looked down at the ground. There were so many flies in the air that I couldn't even see my feet. So Greg can't even see his feet eventually. I had to squint to stop them getting into my eyes. So he had to look with his eyes partly closed like this because the flies would have gone into his eyes. So he started squinting. I started to walk slowly where I thought the house was. So Greg starts to move in some direction. He can't see, right? There's flies everywhere. I bumped into something large. It was the truck. I I was obviously going the wrong way. So he's in the wrong direction. He went towards the truck by mistake, but he can't even see. I turned around and tried a different direction. So then he turns and he's trying to get to the house. Then I heard Dad's voice. I could just make it out over the buzzing of flies. Greg, Greg, this way, he called. I followed the sound of his voice. I walked very slowly to make sure I didn't bump into anything. So Greg is just, squinting and walking, and he isn't able to see which direction he's going in, but he's following his father's voice. At last, I reached Dad. I couldn't see him, but I could feel him, right? He's touching his father. He was standing on the doorstep. So you can see how hazardous this is. He can't even find his way back home. Get ready, Dad shouted. I'm going to open the door. When I say go, rush in as quick as you can. I'll slam the door after us. So he says, Greg, I'm going to open the door for a millisecond. And the moment I do it, run in. And then I'm going to slam the door, else all these flies will enter the house. Go! He yelled. We both fell into the room. So they both jumped in. I couldn't see anything, but I heard the door shut with a bang. Put on the light, said Dad. I switched on the light. The room was full of flies, but it wasn't as bad as outside. At least we could see, right? So outside, you couldn't even see anything. They had blocked the sun, they had blocked the light. It was hazardous outside, but at least in the house, they turned on the light and they could see. I looked at the window. It was black. So this is Greg looking at the window, and it's absolutely pitch black outside. This is how it became, right? And this is afternoon. This is probably 2 p.m. in the afternoon. And yeah, it was pitch black outside. Millions of flies were crawling over our window. Quick, said Dad. Block up all the cracks under the doors. I'll cover up the chimney. We've got to stop the flies from coming in. I started stuffing towels and rags under the door. So they had to ensure that these flies did not come from under the door or through the chimney. So Greg is putting towels over there so flies won't come in. And Dad covered up the fireplace with a piece of cardboard, a thick piece of cardboard, so the flies couldn't enter. When we had all the cracks blocked up, he found some fly spray. We had plenty of fly spray in the house. It was something we used a lot of. It took 3 cans to kill them all. So whatever was in the house, they had about 3 or 4 cans and they killed all the flies. They sprayed and sprayed the fly spray and killed all of the flies. We ran upstairs to look out of the top windows, and even they were as black as this. So when they went upstairs to the first floor of their home, even the windows there were black. We couldn't see outside at all. We were trapped in our own house by millions and millions of flies. So they were imprisoned in their house. They couldn't go out because flies had taken over the town. Ugh. Right? So they were confined in their house. They were imprisoned in their house. Do you see that? Yes, they're trapped, they're confined, they are imprisoned. So, children, what do you think about this? Wouldn't this be very scary for you if this happened? Wouldn't it be terrifying for you if you were trapped in your house thanks to these flies, these disgusting, repulsive, revolting, repugnant flies? So, yes, Dad was upset. This is bad, Greg. Very bad. Batch 100 is much too strong. Every fly in the country must be here, and it's all my fault. We've got to get rid of those flies. So, children, I have a request of you. Could you send me some messages? Because the chat isn't moving for me. So just please send me a few messages if you can. Thank you. Let's continue. So batch 100 seems even stronger than batch 72. Every fly in the country must be here, and it's all my fault. We've got to get rid of those flies. All right, so he says that this is dreadful. This is appalling. So he says this is a very bad situation. This is a dreadful situation. This is an appalling situation. This is a terrible situation because every fly in the country has come here to their small town and they must be attracted to these flies. Thank you so much, Miss Kavita, for sending me the message. I am getting messages now. I really appreciate your help. Okay, let's continue. So, yes, so dad is scared also because this is such an appalling, dreadful situation. Since millions of flies, probably every fly in the country is here. Just then, the phone rang. Dad picked it up. It was Mr. Jackson. He was shouting. So their neighbor, Mr. Jackson, is called, and Mr. Jackson is obviously infuriated. He's enraged. He is incensed. He is angry. I could hear every word, even though the flies were buzzing loudly outside. You messed up! The whole town is blacked out with flies. Nobody can get out of their house. It's pitch black in the middle of the day. It's all your fault, you and your manure. You better do something and do it quick. You brought the flies here. Now you get rid of them. So Mr. Jackson is screaming, he's screeching, he's shrieking over the phone. And honestly, anyone would do this. Now imagine your neighbor was making concoctions of animal poop, right? He's making concoctions of manure, and all this is happening. Every fly in India or wherever it is that you're living comes to your town, your city. Would you like it? So, someone's asked me the meaning of dreadful and appalling. Dreadful and appalling mean bad and terrible. Okay? So, yes, they have to do something about this dreadful, appalling, bad, terrible situation. So, let's continue. And if you have any questions, please don't worry. We are going to keep a question and answer round at the end of the session, and you can ask me all your questions at one go. All right. What can we do? Said Dad. How can we get rid of them? He hung his head in his hands. So Dad is feeling helpless and he's holding his head in his hands this way. The poor man. I felt sorry for my dad. We both sat there thinking. So they are thinking, they're pondering what they should do. They're thinking deeply, right? They're trying to come up with ideas. They're brainstorming. Outside, the flies were getting thicker and thicker. So outside, the flies only kept coming and coming and coming and coming because all across their yard, right? All across their yard, Dad had spread out batch 100. In the entire vegetable garden, there was batch 100. So the flies just kept coming and coming and coming and coming. So this was a disastrous situation. When something is disastrous, it means it's causing great damage. It's a disaster. This is the dung disaster that's happening. So it's a disastrous situation. It's a catastrophic situation. It's a ruinous situation. Let's look at these words. So what has happened is obviously a disaster, right? It's causing great damage to this town. So it's disastrous, causing great damage. It's catastrophic. All these three words mean the same thing, right? Great damage has been caused. It's a disastrous situation. Catastrophic means disastrous. Ruinous means a lot has been ruined, a lot has been damaged. It's causing a lot of ruin, damage. So disastrous, catastrophic, and ruinous means causing great damage. It's a very damaging situation. So Greg says, what if we get lots of fly spray and spray all these flies? So Dad says, no, that's not any good. There isn't enough fly spray in the world to kill these flies. These are millions and millions and millions and millions of flies. We can't see anything, right? We need something stronger, something that's really, really powerful. So now they are in a difficult situation. Greg and his father are in a very difficult situation. And that is called a dilemma. A dilemma. A dilemma is a very difficult situation because you don't know what to do. You're stuck, right? There are millions of flies outside their house. They have caused a disastrous, catastrophic, ruinous situation. And they don't have enough fly spray to kill these flies. In fact, all the fly spray in the world wouldn't kill these flies. So they are in a dilemma. And the second word is predicament. Predicament. Everyone repeat after me. Predicament. Predicament. So if you're in a dilemma or a predicament, you are in a difficult situation like Greg and his father. So we sat there looking at each other. We both thought of the answer at the same time. Batch 72, we shouted together. So they both thought, that we should create batch 72 again and kill all the flies. Now, batch 72, if you remember, was a malodorous, putrid, foul smelling batch, but it killed all the flies. It killed fish and flies, you remember? So, Dad wants to make batch 72 again, spread it all over his vegetable garden, spread it all over his yard. So all the flies in the town will start dying. That's it, said Dad. The smell is so strong that it kills flies. I'll mix up a special batch of cow dung and rotten pumpkins and all the other ingredients that he had for batch 72. But what about the smell, Dad? I asked. We can't help the smell. This is an emergency. The whole town is blacked out with flies, Greg. We have to do something. So Dad says, forget about the smell. We can't do anything about the smell. It's all right. We have to deal with it right now. You see, this whole town is hidden. This whole town is concealed. It's hidden because of these flies. We can't see anything. We step out, we can't even see each other. So we need to do something because this whole town is concealed. The whole town is hidden. You see, it's a disastrous, catastrophic, and ruinous situation. So let's make batch 72 and let's kill all these flies first. That is our priority. But how can we make it? I asked him. You can't see a thing out there. You can hardly breathe. The flies get into your nose and mouth. You wouldn't be able to make batch 72. It's as black as pitch outside. So Greg says that even if you go outside, you won't be able to do anything because these flies, they're entering your nose, your mouth. You can't even see. You have to squint. They'll enter your eyes. They'll try and hit your eyes. So what will you do? um, you know, it's as black as pitch outside. You can't do anything. You can't make batch 72. We both fell silent again. Again, this is another dilemma, another predicament. So they're both looking at each other, wondering what to do. Then Dad had an idea. The beekeeper's outfit, he yelled. I can wear the beekeeper's outfit. So once upon a time, Greg's dad used to take care of bees. He had a beehive and he used to take care of bees. He still had that outfit, which had a hat and a net to stop the bees from stinging him. So a beekeeper has to wear a special outfit, which has a hat and a net in front of the face to prevent the bees from stinging him. What about me, Dad? You can't do it on your own. You will have to make a lot of batch 72. So Greg tells him, you don't have to make a small amount of batch 72. We have to make a lot of it. It has to cover our yard. It has to ensure that these millions of flies in our entire town die. It's not a small undertaking. It is a large task, right? It's a very difficult task. You're going to need help. I'll come with you too. So Greg says we have to make a large amount, a profusion. A large amount is a profusion, a large quantity of batch 72. So there has to be a heaps of batch 72, a profusion of batch 72. So let's continue. So they dressed up in their outfits, and now Dad has to think of an outfit for Greg. Dad says, you can wear your wetsuit and put on the goggles, and you can wear the snorkel to stop the flies from getting into your mouth. So when you do any water activities like snorkeling or scuba diving, you wear a wetsuit, you have these special goggles, and you have a snorkel in your mouth, which helps you breathe. So Dad says you wear that and your eyes will be protected and your mouth also will be protected. So let's see what they look like. So that's Dad here in front. He's the dad in yellow. He's wearing the beekeeper's outfit. He has a hat and a net on his head, on his face to protect his eyes, nose, and mouth. And Greg here is wearing his wetsuit with his goggles and his snorkel, right? So you see the little red thing on top of his head? That is what helps him breathe when he's underwater. Okay, let's continue. I felt silly, but as Dad said, this was an emergency. We tied a rope to each other so that we didn't get lost. So what they do is Dad ties a rope around his waist and Greg takes the second part of that rope and ties it around his waist. So they tie themselves to each other so they can find each other, even amongst the flies. So they walked to the door and they opened it. Now they're going out to be amongst the flies, right? So Dad is going in his beekeeper's outfit and Greg is going in his wetsuit. A million flies poured into the room. Everything went black. The light was on, but we couldn't even see it. So the moment they opened the door, the flies covered their house. Even though the light was on, everything became pitch black. I felt a pull on the rope. Dad was moving into the backyard. So Dad is moving ahead and Greg feels a pull, so he follows Dad. Remember, they've tied a rope to each other. They're tied to each other. I couldn't see him, so I just followed the rope. The flies swirled around us in one huge black cloud. They couldn't see each other. They're only following the rope. We walked slowly. At last, we reached the back fence. So they reached the back of their yard. They reached the fence. I felt Dad's hand on my arm. He was shouting at me. It was difficult to hear him because of the buzzing of the flies. So Dad is shouting, Greg, Greg, but you can't hear him over the buzzing of the flies. Let's continue. We will need at least 16 bins of batch 72 to kill all these flies. So Dad says that we're going to need a profusion of batch 72, 16 bins of batch 72. They must be covering the whole town. So they're going to make a lot of it. The flies were so thick that it was like walking through a river. So the flies weren't even letting them walk, right? It was like walking through a river. I felt Dad's hand on my arm again. We will have to untie the rope, he shouted. It will take a long time to mix up 16 bins of batch 72. We have to hurry. The flies are getting thicker, so they can barely walk. They can barely find anything. The flies are getting thicker. So Dad says, let's untie the rope and let's quickly find all the ingredients and start making batch 72. I'm scared, Dad, I told him. I might get lost if you untie the rope. So Greg is scared. He's panic stricken. He's horror stricken. He's terror stricken. So Greg tells him, look, I'm really scared. And what if I get lost? So let's look at these words: panic stricken, horror stricken, terror stricken, right? Panic stricken, horror stricken, terror stricken. All three mean scared. Feel your way along the fence, he said. When you get to the manure heap, try to fill up the wheelbarrow with cow dung. Put 10 shovelfuls in each bin. I'll put in the rest of the mixture. So Dad says, Greg, hold the fence. Don't be scared. Don't be panic-stricken, horror-stricken, or terror-stricken. Be brave. Be courageous. Come on, you can do this. And when you get to the cow dung, you fill each bin. They have 16 bins. You fill each of those bins with 10 shovelfuls of cow manure, cow dung. So you take 10 shovels and put in each bin, right? So 16 into 10, 160 shovels. Greg has to put in 160 shovels of cow manure. So his voice was shaking. I knew he was scared too. So Dad's voice was also trembling. Even he was panic-stricken, horror-stricken, terror-stricken. We didn't know what was going to happen. So I undid the rope and followed the fence to the manure heap. It took a long time, but at last I managed to put cow dung in every bin. So somehow Greg felt his way. He couldn't see anything. And he found the cow dung and he put 10 shovelfuls in each bin. The flies kept bumping into my goggles. It felt as if someone was throwing rice at me. So, the flies were bumping into his goggles. It felt like someone kept throwing rice. What was happening? Every now and then I bumped into Dad. So every now and then Greg could feel Dad coming. He was putting all sorts of things into the bins. Remember, there were other ingredients also. Once he dropped a rotten pumpkin onto my foot. So once he dropped a rotten pumpkin. So remember, there was rotten pumpkin. That's what made the batch 72 yellow in color. Then something wonderful happened. A shocking stink filled the air. It was the first batch of, it was batch 72 that had come back now to life. Hooray! I shouted. I was really happy, even though the smell was so bad. So, even though it was so malodorous, foul smelling, putrid, Greg, that means Greg the narrator, is over the moon. He is euphoric. He's ecstatic because these flies are going to die. Dad came over to me. Go back to the house, he yelled. If this works, there are going to be dead flies everywhere. You might get buried if you stay here. No way, I told him. I'm staying with you. So Greg says, no, no, no. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to stay with you and we're going to see what happens. After a while, we mixed two bins of batch 72. The stink grew stronger and stronger. Started smelling horrible. I felt ill, but I kept going. So Greg felt nauseated, but he kept going, right? He felt like he was going to puke. He felt like he was going to vomit. Nauseated means you feel like vomiting, you feel sick, you feel disgusted. So the smell was so terrible that Greg felt like he was going to vomit, he was going to go everywhere. But they knew that they had to kill the flies. And luckily, Dad's olfactory senses don't work. So Dad was absolutely fine. Hey! I suddenly shouted. I can see you, Dad! I could make out the shape of Dad in his beekeeper's outfit. So earlier it was pitch black, but slowly Greg can see Dad's outline. So looks like the batch 72 is starting to kill some of the flies. I looked at the ground. It was covered in flies. Some of them were dead, and some of them were lying on their backs, kicking their legs in the air. So some were dead and some were dying. There was a thick carpet of flies all over the lawn. Then I felt my head. My head was full of dead flies. So the flies had perished. Right? The flies were perishing. They were dying. Perished is the flies were dead. Right? Perished means dead. They were starting to fall down out of the sky. It was raining flies. So thankfully, the flies were dying. I was no longer scared out of my wits because batch 72 was working. So earlier, Greg was scared out of his wits. He was panic stricken. He was horror stricken. He was terror stricken. He was terrified. But now he is no longer scared out of his wits because the flies are dying. They have perished. And slowly, flies had covered the lawn. Suddenly, everything was black, right? They're starting to get buried under the flies. Flies were pouring down all around us. The dead bodies were so deep that we couldn't move quickly. So after they made all of the batch 72, after they made 16 bins of batch 72, the flies started dying very rapidly. And there were dead bodies of flies all over their yard. And it became so deep that they could barely move. At first, they were knee deep, and then slowly it became neck deep, right? So Dad says, come on, get into the house quickly, get into the house, else we're going to be buried alive. It was much better in the house. The flies were only knee deep. So outside, the flies became neck deep, but they quickly opened the house and they entered the house. And in the house, the flies were only knee deep and not neck deep. At least we could walk around. We went upstairs as quickly as we could and looked out of the window. It was still raining flies, but it was starting to ease off. So it was still raining flies. Flies were still raining down from the skies, but it was starting to ease off. To ease off is to become less serious or severe, right? To ease off is to become less serious or less severe. It wasn't as bad as it was. The batch 72 was working its magic. Every fly was dead at last when it stopped. The batch 72 had killed all of them. The smell of it was as putrid as ever. It was as disgusting as ever. Our house was on top of a hill, so Greg and his father lived on top of a hill. We could see the whole town. Every house was covered in dead flies. They covered the road and the cars, the trees and the gardens. It looked just like a snow-covered village, but with black snow. So their house was the worst, of course. Their yard was the worst because that's where the batch 100 was. That's what the flies were attracted to. But even the rest of the town was horrible. And when the flies stopped falling, it was as though there was black snow everywhere. That's what their town looked like. You see the ground, it's covered in dead flies. You see that the car there, the car is covered in dead flies. The houses are covered in dead flies. There was not a person in sight. See, not one person is outside. Everyone was trapped inside their houses. The whole town was silent. And all over it hung the terrible smell of batch 72. So the whole town smells fetid, right? The whole town smells fetid. It smells disgusting. So fetid means foul smelling, putrid, and malodorous. I taught you those three yesterday. Please add fetid to that list. Fetid means malodorous, stinky, foul smelling, putrid. So the town looks like this and smells very fetid as well. So the town is in very bad shape. Dad looked at me. Oh no, Greg, all of your hair is gone. I felt the top of my head. It was smooth. I rushed to the mirror. Oh no, I groaned. Not that, I'm bald. Then I looked at Dad. He was bald again too. All of his new hair had fallen out. Remember, Dad's hair had fallen out because of batch 72 the first time. And now, even this time, Dad's hair has fallen out again. Even their eyebrows have fallen out. And this is what Greg and his dad look like. They're so shocked looking at themselves because they've lost their hair and they've lost their eyebrows because of batch 72. So the town is covered in dead flies. The town smells fetid, and even they've lost their hair. So this is what happens when you play with poop. When you mess with manure or play with poop, this is what happens to you. All right, let's continue. It's the batch 72, I said. It's so strong it makes the hair fall out. I looked out of the window again. It was still very quiet, but 4 or 5 people were outside. They were trying to clear the flies from their front doors. So obviously the people have come out to start clearing up the town because the town is covered in dead flies. I looked at them closely. There was something strange about them. So there was something very bizarre, strange, and atypical about the people that Greg could see outside. Then I got a shock. They were also all bald. Even the other people in the town, because of batch 72, even they had lost their hair and even they had lost their eyebrows. So since the smell of batch 72 had spread in such a way, and the flies had touched batch 72 and gone to their houses, So all these people also have lost their hair. Everyone in the town has become bald, and even they've lost their eyebrows. So all of them look strange. They look bizarre. They look atypical, right? They look strange. They look bizarre, and they look atypical. They don't look normal. They don't look typical. They look atypical. They look abnormal, right? This means strange or abnormal. Like Greg and his dad are also looking strange and abnormal here. I'm sure you'll agree that they are looking bizarre and atypical as well. So, yes. A bit later, we heard the sound of a motor. It was a bulldozer clearing the streets. So, there was a bulldozer to clear the streets of the dead flies. Behind the bulldozer was a police car. They came slowly up our street. So the police vehicle was coming to Greg's and his father's house. People were following them. Lots of bald people, men, women, and children. They were angry. They were incensed. They were infuriated. They were enraged. They were yelling and screaming at us. Right? So the people were coming to their house and they were obviously angry because they're all bald. So they're yelling, they're screaming, they're hollering, they're screeching. They're like, Greg! We are Greg and Greg's father. What did you do? So they are hollering and screeching, right? Screaming, screeching, shrieking, hollering because they're so angry. So both these words mean screaming. They're screaming their lungs out. The bulldozer stopped at a house and a bald policeman stepped down from it. So a bald policeman came to us and he said, and he had held a handkerchief to his mouth because it smelled so bad. It smelled like batch 72. Quick, he said, get into the police car. I'll have to get you out of here before the mob gets you. So a mob is an angry crowd. An angry crowd of violent people is a mob. So he says, come on, I have to get you out of here because this mob is going to grow larger and I'm very scared what they will do if they get their hands on you. They might tear you to pieces. They're very angry and they could hurt you. So I need to take you away from here, right? I need to take care of you and take you away from here. So the policeman pushed us into the car. He said, come on, you need to leave right now. Your lives are in danger. The townspeople might kill you. They're that angry with you. So he pushed us into the car and started driving down the street. So the bulldozer was clearing the street and the policeman was driving quickly behind it. Crowds of bald people surrounded the car. They threw things at the car and tried to open the doors. They wanted us to pull us out of the car. Some even threw handfuls of dead flies at the car. So they wanted to hurt us. See, they were taking the dead flies and throwing it at the car. They wanted to get us out of the car. They wanted to hurt us. I could see why they were angry. Everyone was bald, even the dogs and cats. So even their pet dogs and cats had lost all their hair. Not one person or animal in the town had hair left anywhere on their body. If men had lost their beards, their eyebrows, women had lost their hair, the hair on their head, their eyebrows. The cats and dogs have lost all their fur. So it was very scary to watch. In the end, the police got us safely through the town. They took us to the city, which was a long way away. So they dropped them far, far away to a city. And then they let us go. Dad and I were both very upset. We knew one thing for sure. We couldn't go back to our town again. So Greg and his father forever could not go back to that town again because the townspeople would probably harm them. You see, they couldn't go back. There was a big fuss about the whole thing. It was all in the papers and on TV. Obviously, it would be in the news, right? It was such a terrible event. Millions of flies from all over the country had come to this small town. People had become bald. It was a story about poop and flies, and everybody watching it all around the world was very interested. So there was a lot of fuss. There was an excessive interest in this. Dad and I changed our names so that nobody could find us. So they changed their identity so that nobody could find them. Then it all died down and people started to forget about it. So after a few months, people started to forget about it. Time had passed and people were no longer interested in the story. There was a shortage of wigs in that area for a while. So a lot of people were buying wigs, obviously, since they'd lost their hair. So for some time, there was a shortage of wigs. But after a couple of months, everybody's hair grew back. And as time passed, people started to think it was funny. So when people would narrate this story, they would find it funny. It sounds like a very amusing, comical, hilarious story because it's a story about a vegetable farmer, an olericulturist who was mixing up different types of poop, and the flies had gotten attracted to it. Then he mixed another type of poop and killed the flies, but people lost their hair. So it was a funny story. So Greg says, I'm writing this story next to the swimming pool on our farm. So now Greg and his father live on our farm where there is a swimming pool. Dad is out in the front cleaning our Rolls Royce. Hmm. So it sounds like Greg and his father have become affluent. They've become rich. They have their own farm. Remember earlier when we did part one, they were so broke they couldn't afford their own farm. But now they're affluent, they're rich, they have a farm, a swimming pool, a luxury car, a Rolls Royce, right? So they are affluent, they are rich. Things worked out quite well for us in the end. So they got affluent, things worked out for them. Let's see what they did. Dad made a lot of money out of an invention. So dad invented something, right? He made it out of an invention, an innovation. An invention is a creation or an innovation. So dad created or invented something. He made an innovation. It's yellow stuff for getting rid of hair. So dad created a hair removal cream. People buy it in tubes. They put it on their legs. It works very well and it smells lovely. So dad took the ingredients for batch 72, changed the ingredients a little bit, made it smell lovely, and started selling it as a hair removal cream. That was his innovation, that was his invention. People call him a pioneer. A pioneer is one of the first people to do something. So, this was one of the first hair removal creams. It's called B72 hair removal cream. So dad used all his knowledge. He created a hair removal cream called B72. People started calling him a pioneer. A pioneer is one of the first people in the world to do something, right? So he was one of the first people in the world to create a hair removal cream called B72 hair removal cream. Everybody loves B72 hair removal cream. They think B72 hair removal cream is glorious, right? They think it is marvelous. They think it is glorious. They think it is wonderful. However, nobody knows what B72 stands for. Nobody knows that B72 means batch 72. They're putting it on their bodies to remove their hair, but of course it smells lovely. But if it were to touch flies or fish, they would die. But yes, he is a pioneer, and you're right, a trailblazer. Absolutely right. A pioneer, a trailblazer. He's created a glorious product called B72, children. So, yes, that's the story. They turned all their struggles into something amazing. They became very affluent because of B72 hair removal cream, and everybody in the world loves B72 hair removal cream. They don't know the main ingredient is cow dung, but they're putting it on their bodies to remove the hair. All right? So, children, my question to you is, what was your favorite part of the story? I'd like to know in the chat what your favorite part of this story was. And in case you have any questions, you can ask me those as well. If you had any doubts, if there was any word that you didn't understand, I would love to explain it to you. So you can let me know. And children, um, today also happens to be Father's Day. So happy Father's Day to our dashing dads. And the reason we narrated this story was because it's about a dad and his relationship with his son, how they became a team and they overcame this problem, right? He is a wonderful father. He cares a lot about his son, and even though he is an eccentric father, he has some weird likes and dislikes, playing with poop. But even then, he created B72 hair removal cream and he's taking care of his son. So, yes. So, children, let's go back to our question. What was your favorite part of the story? So, Poonam Goswami says it was really interesting. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Even I loved this story. I thought it was very riveting. So Apeksha Sharma says, when we found that everybody in the town is bald, yes, that was hilarious. Imagine. So Rakesh says the batch 72 part was my favorite. All right, yes. Poonam says my favorite part was when Greg's father turned into a pioneer. Yes, he created batch 72 hair removal cream. Oh, yes, got it. Uh, so Praveen, please tell me your real name, says, I really did like the story. It was very interesting. All right. Yes, Tanishka, I got your name. Thank you so much for your answers. My Arya says my favorite part was when they found a solution to the flies. Yes, Arya, batch 72 was the solution. So Avyan also enjoyed the batch 72 part. So children, please don't worry about these 60 words. In case you weren't able to note them down, we've created a list for you. What you can do is you can WhatsApp us on this number. You see this number here, 9004614609. Just WhatsApp us on this number and we will send you all the 60 words with their meanings from the story. All right? So don't worry. Yes, Vanya, thank you so much for your answer. Arvika says it was an enchanting story. Thank you. Yes, it really was. Neha says when flies were everywhere in town. That's your favorite part. Yeah, that was very odd when it happened. It was bizarre. Kanishka says my favorite part was when Greg told us why his nickname was Cow Dung Kid. Yes, that was hilarious. So, it was really an exhilarating story. Rutra, I agree with you. So Arvika says when Greg and his father thought of batch 72, I also thought of it at the same time. Oh wow, Arvika, that really is a coincidence. Lovely. Uh Apeksha, yes, it is going to be on YouTube and you can watch it again if you would like. So Nali says, my favorite part of the story is that even when Greg and his dad were in a predicament, they managed to use these drawbacks to create an innovation, and they were soon regarded as trailblazers. Excellent answer. You've used the vocabulary perfectly. So proud of you. Harmira says, I loved all the parts. Yes, the story was very riveting. So Prajakta says, my favorite part was when the people were bald. Yes, the people in the town became bald, even the animals. So children, we are done for the day and I hope you enjoyed the story and I will see you very, very soon. We're going to have another session and we're going to let you know. Like I said, in case you want the PDF of all the meanings, please WhatsApp us on this number and we will send it to you. All right, children, goodbye.